Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
What should we banter on?
Oh my God, I should have prepped with a banter topic. Oh, I had one though.
You did?
Yeah, which was, what do you think people should know about all of the hilarious stuff that happens around functional bodybuilding behind the scenes?
Well, the Slack, the team meeting icebreakers get pretty interesting.
Yep.
I like those. Our head of operations, Cliff, runs our team all hands meetings, and then he always has a good icebreaker. We've been doing icebreakers forever, so he's pretty good about keeping them efficient. We used to take 45 minutes to do an icebreaker for an hour meeting.
No, our meetings were 2 hours back then.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Oh God. Nate's like, thank God I wasn't around for that. Yeah.
Yep.
So the one last week the question was, well, actually you frame the question because I don't want to butcher it, but
the one we did just yesterday, right?
Yes.
The middling.
I guess that was yesterday.
Okay.
Well, technically, if you're listening to this, it was
right.
2.5 weeks ago, but
Okay.
It was yesterday.
So the icebreaker was based around a situation that had happened where Cliff actually came out to visit us and we all went out and had dinner. And then this topic came up of, if you're at a big dinner party table, then whose responsibility is it to unite people in conversation, to keep the conversation going, especially among different sides of the table?
That's right. And I suppose people who are fans of the show Curb Your Enthusiasm would maybe recognize this as a topic, or maybe an entire episode, a Larry David topic and episode. But I had never seen that particular episode because I don't watch a ton of that show. I thought it was interesting. And where I was sitting at that particular night was at the end. I was at the far end, not the head of the table, just at the end on the side, very removed from the main conversation. And you were in the middle, one of the middle seats. There were 8 people at the dinner. So you were you were on the bench, which I feel like the bench definitely attracts more attention. If you're on the bench side versus the chair side, if you happen to be at a table that has one side that's a bench, that's definitely the person on that side, the bench side, has to facilitate more of the conversation. I think everything is directed there. So you were really in a hot seat next to Molly, and I think it just fell on you to really carry the conversation and connect everybody on all sides, which you did exceptionally well a few times. And then kind of things drifted. You kind of got lazy. You were eating your steak and drinking your gimlet and all that business.
Oh, dang.
Dang. No, it was fun. It was a fun night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other funny thing about the staff meeting is that it was very much all of our staff family dynamics popping up. It was the people trying to figure out what we were talking about because they weren't at the dinner, and then Bree with the FOMO of why wasn't I invited?
I know, right?
It's everybody's personality.
Which, come to think of it, Bree is an 8-hour drive away from us.
She would have come.
Shame on you, Molly, for not inviting Bree. It's anybody in the state of California should have been invited to the dinner. And anyhow, so we had a nice dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nate was there. Of course. Okay, well, here we go. For those of you who are kind of new to the show, or new listeners, you may not know this, but we have a very, very unique channel that you can send us your questions and topics that you'd like to hear about. Most of the time we tell you to slide into the DMs and send us your topics there. But once upon a time, we used a platform called speakpipe.com /look good, move well. That is speakpipe.com /look good, move well. And you can actually call in and I'm like making the hand gesture for a phone, but it's not really on a phone because you'll be calling through your computer. But you can leave an audio recording of a question that you have or a topic that you'd like us to address on the show. And so we got a speak pipe, didn't we?
Yeah, we got a speak pipe submission. It was
Which
rad.
means somebody was listening to an old episode because
Right.
we haven't mentioned it in probably 6 months.
Yeah.
Which is great.
He said he was a new listener to the podcast, so he's probably going back to some old episodes. It was great.
Gosh, look
Yeah,
at that. This
I
whole
know.
internet. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Nate said that everything exists forever. Even my embarrassing posts from 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was our speak pipe?
Okay, so this was a submission from, I believe his name was Shane. I apologize if that's not your name because I've had a really full-on day, but I believe that's what it was. And he asked a question that was about Strongman. And he was interested to know how we would look at a training regimen like Strongman and evaluate, hey, would this be good for strength, aesthetics, overall fitness? He was asking about that one specifically, but I thought it'd be useful to talk about how we look at anything that might come across our radar and catch our eye.
Cool. Yeah, well, let's do it. And as a side note, my daughter, one of Megan's friends sent us a kid's book. And last night or 2 nights ago, my daughter was like, I want you to read this book to me. And so I got to read a book called Strong. And it's about a young man who grows up, loves sports, loves lifting weights, and wants to become a strongman competitor. And he is the conflict is around, he's a very bright colored individual, loves to wear bright everything. But strongmen don't wear bright colors. They kind of wear dark, tough colors. So he wasn't able to like express himself, and in his first competition didn't do so well. But then was encouraged by a friend who said, you're a bright person. You should wear bright colors. So he came to his second strongman competition with rainbow hair, bright colors, crushed it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a sweet story.
And fun fact, we used to have a strong woman competitor on our staff.
That's true.
Yeah.
We did. Gita,
our former videographer.
That's right. Well, what do you think about strong person training?
Yeah. Well, it was cool when Gita was here training for it because I got to see the type of training that one does for that sport firsthand and what goes into the prep and what goes into the competitions a little bit. It was very interesting to learn about. And one thing that I appreciated just as a side note was that there were a lot of really badass women. So that always catches my eye.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just notice, okay, well, here's a training style that's really not about aesthetics the way that functional bodybuilding or bodybuilding might be. It's really about lifting strong and being just as, intensely powerful for these like short, heavy lifts as possible, not so much the endurance.
Yeah.
So just a little framework for, okay, what are these types of movements? Are they long? Are they short? Are they heavy? Are they powerful? And then what kind of bodies do those movements best typically? Yeah.
It's really interesting to me with strongman training or strongman as a sport. It's one of the longest televised weight kind of training like centered sports there is. Like strongman has been the world's strongest man competition has been on ESPN for decades. And long before, and getting much more appeal than Olympic weightlifting it was around before CrossFit. It was around before parkour, Ninja Warrior, all this. It's been around. So most people have seen it, yet it hasn't caught on like other fitness things out there. Despite, hey, there's it's kind of flashy. There's a whole thing happening. There's some pretty compelling stories behind some of these athletes. There's the American who's winning for years, and then there was the Eastern European, who won for 2 decades in a row. But just compelling stories, and yet it still hasn't like flourished as like, you don't hear people being like, yeah, I do strongman. Like, I want to go do strong. Like, it's not like the thing to go do. It's certainly grown a lot in popularity over the years. And I think with Rogue Fitness adding in strongman to their competitions, selling a lot of strongman equipment, sponsoring big, athletes, I think, the Mountain from Game of Thrones being this like very, very recognizable figure in, pop culture, but he's a strongman competitor, world champion many times. Like, this has helped it for sure, but it's still not like the thing that people want to go pick up and do. Like, they'll see CrossFit competitors and be like, I want to go try CrossFit. They don't see a strongman competitor and be like, I want to go try strongman, or at least not in the same numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there would be some obstacles, one of which is that strongman uses a few particular tools that are a little bit hard to get your hands on, literally and figuratively.
Yep.
They've got the giant stones with the chains. That's a little hard to simulate at your Planet Fitness. They've got the log thing and the big bag toss. And I would imagine that would be hard to simulate.
Right. Well, that helps answer that's a part of the answer to the question, I suppose, is like, how do I implement this, or how do I approach implementing and bringing things into a methodology? It's like, or maybe even before we get to that, it's like, well, how do you decide what you're going to do? It's like, are you going to go try a bunch of different things that have no connection to each other? Or have you established this is like how I do things, and I want to just experiment and try and see about bringing a couple of those things into what I'm currently, what my method is.
Yeah.
And I've arrived at that place kind of in my life where I'm like, I'm a functional bodybuilder. Like, that's what I do. There's going to be a foundation of resistance training in a kind of with a bodybuilding slant to it with some maximal strength efforts. There's going to be sort of a conditioning bias to it, focus, which is going to use cardio, strength, body weight combined together, and that's kind of it. So where could strongman fit into that? Or where could, something like jiu-jitsu or mountain biking or any of these other things fit into, the picture of how I'm going to build my own fitness program? Well, I'm not going to do jiu-jitsu in my functional bodybuilding training. It doesn't fit. I'm not going to ride my mountain bike and then get off and do weights. Like, no, I'm going to take my mountain bike up in the mountain. But something like strongman, like, we're talking about implements, we're talking about specific disciplines in that sport. Do any of them have a place inside of the gym? Well, we have heavy bags and heavy medicine balls here, which simulate Atlas stones. And I used to have stones in my gym back in Mill Valley. And we used to have a yoke that was here, which is...
I love that thing.
Yeah. And, Gita left behind her heavy sandbag that you, I think, got for her. Is that true? I
think she took the one I got for her.
Oh, did she?
But she had another heavy one. Maybe
she left a heavy bag here. Okay. And so we have some of the tools, and so, okay, those could fit great inside of a, resistance training program or a, conditioning program that we have. And I love that. I mean, we have even farmer's handles, the ones that you can load up super heavy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I rarely do I go so heavy on farmer's carries that I need more than 100 pounds. We have dumbbells and we have 125 pound kettlebells. So, but even just a couple weeks ago, I loaded up a 150 pound, farmer's handle, and that worked really great for, an EMOM that we did in a pump 40 workout.
Yep.
Like, I added that in.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks before that, lifting the stones over my shoulder, doing stone over shoulder, doing Nordic hamstring curls as a superset. It's a great way to take an implement and plug it into, part of the training that I do. So that's kind of the first question you have to ask. Like, do I want to try and see about making this part of what I'm doing already? Or do I want to just train in the gym and then depart from that once a week, twice a week to go do a totally different discipline. Do something, it's like, am I going to do Olympic weightlifting as part of my training session, or am I going to do my gym workouts and then go to a barbell club once a week, one night a week? And you kind of have to make that choice and decide. And for me, it comes down to like, how do I efficiently keep these things in my life, bring them into my life and to a rhythm that works for me really well? Because I've found something that works really well for me, and I'm not like trying to go find the new thing to escape, or to fix a problem that I have. I'm like, well, no, I'm curious and I want to add variety into what I already do. And so, yeah, I'd love to, another example is like steel mace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you have people that do steel mace training.
Or all kettlebell.
Or all kettlebell training. Like you go to their gym and they got kettlebells and steel maces and battle ropes and there's nothing else. It's like, where's the barbell? It's like, we don't have them. Where are the dumbbells? We don't have them. Where are the benches? They don't exist. It's like, it's just this stuff. But all those implements that I just mentioned, they can fit well within a functional bodybuilding routine, and a kettlebell could be a great way to do a hot start, or a great way to do instead of doing Olympic lifting that day, you can do a kettlebell complex that day. We do that a lot inside of Persist. And then just like, I'm going to just mix in this one implement in place of what I would typically do, which would be like a dumbbell snatch. I'm going to do a steel mace complex and just try that out instead. Yeah.
How do you evaluate whether a new training style is going to get you the aesthetic results that you might want?
I think about first it's just like, what delivers the aesthetic result that I've come to know? Heavy resistance training, good diet, and, a sufficient amount of like cardio, energy system, conditioning work that doesn't take away from the resistance training, but adds additional aerobic capacity and energy expenditure to my day, to my week. And so if I look at something, I'm like, is this going to either one, be easily incorporated or substitute for, some of the cardiovascular fitness that I'm wanting to get? Like mountain biking, great. Like I want to get 2 to 3 hours of steady state cardio a week. Checks that box. Like I go for a 75-minute ride, I go for a 90-minute ride, I go for a 2-hour ride. Like that's great. That totally can fit inside of this because I can do that independent of my lifting, and it's not going to impact it. I can still get great lifting in. So that's one way. But something like steel mace training, it's like, okay, I don't know what that feels like. I haven't explored it yet. So I got to get the tool. I got to practice it. Ideally, I practice it with an expert or somebody who knows something, and I can actually, experience how this can feel. And then I'm like, okay, I just did that for 30 minutes and I got a cardio strength training kind of combination. All right, how did that fit? How could that fit into to what I'm doing that I know yields aesthetic results? Or might it not? Might it just be like, hey, this is just going to be added activity that I do outside of that it's not going to be the foundation of what's keeping keeping me looking the way I want to look.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to think about it, because I'm just thinking through in my mind of lots of different activities that I've done and tried. And the main theme is that many of them are very fun and things that I still like to do. But I know that ultimately I'm going to need to do more resistance training than just, dancing or roller skating or pole dancing or, any of the other things that like might just be sort of like a fun way to move your body and might feel like, oh, that was hard and it, I got out of breath and I worked my muscles. But there's a difference between doing that and doing back squats at body weight plus.
That's right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, and it might be hard to like see, like, you're like, but I see dancers that are like jacked.
Right.
You're like, well, okay, yeah. And I see people that do, I see pole dancers that are jacked, and I see people that roller skate that are jacked, and it can be hard to like, what is that person really doing?
Right.
Like that's just the question. It's like that person can eat whatever they want and they're still ripped. It's like, you don't know that they can eat whatever they want. You see them eat one meal and post about it and you're like, oh, they get to eat whatever they want. But what you don't see is that they starved themselves all day and they didn't eat anything else except for that one meal. And that was just this day, just on Saturday. And yeah, you see these dancers who, look ripped. It's like, but they're doing 8 hours of dance a day and they're doing it pretty intensely and they're just barely eating at their maintenance. They're actually in a caloric deficit. So they're just perpetually lean. They have low body fat and that's why they look jacked. Like if you were that lean, you would look jacked. You have muscle underneath that body fat. It's just not popping through. So go do 8 hours of cardio a day and don't eat very much. And guess what? Or just skip your next 20 meals and you'll be ripped, Is there resistance training built into certain types of dance? Sure.
Yeah.
Like male ballet dancers have thick legs, right? It's like there's a lot of jumping. There's a lot of plyometrics. Like their legs get built. There's no doubt about it. But it's like, are there more effective ways to build sexy, badass legs? Like efficient ways? Like, yes, there are. It's called squats and, leg extensions and split squats and sumo deadlifts, that the things that we do. But if you have a passion for dance and you want to do that and make it a career, like right on. I wouldn't recommend doing that if the goal is to have nice legs.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to have nice legs. It's like, okay, well, don't choose the thing that is like the rare case. Like choose the thing that's worked for the vast majority of people who have nice legs.
Yeah. So I think it's good to have the basics of the tried and true in mind when you're choosing activities of resistance training and nutrition and cardio type activity. Is there anything that you would add to that?
With respect to like what's going to keep people looking sexy, or
just something that can guide them in what will this potential new activity, fun thing, strongman, or anything else I might be engaged in be a good fit for me.
Well, the last part is what gets you excited to keep doing it.
Yeah,
that has to be said. And so that's where I think things like Strongman and being like, it's probably best for me to like train 5 days a week in the gym with this program that I've been on for 5 years. It does, gets me the results. But man, I just really feel like doing some Strongman. Like, even though it's not the best thing for my physique, it's like, no, you need to go do this thing. Like you're being called to go do it. You're interested. Like, it's the thing that's going to maybe reinvigorate your training that you're doing outside of Strongman. It's like, go to the Strongman club once a week and just do it, and don't get me wrong, like you're going to get a very different type of stimulus and you might be incredibly sore the first few times you go and you might be building muscle in places that you've never built before doing Strongman because you're lifting odd objects, you're lifting in different ways. Like it could very well complement what you're doing. But to be successful at Strongman, like there's the successful athletes have kind of proven like this is what the bodies of strongman competitors look like. It's like, it's a mass game in a big way. Like mass moves mass. Like you got to be strong and you got to be thick. Like you have to have a trunk, so that you can stack weight on top of yourself. So yeah, what is going to get you inspired? So, if it's going and doing salsa dancing, twice a week, like then go add that in, even if it means like you have to sacrifice one of your workouts.
Yeah.
Because again, it gets you fired up, it gets you excited, and then you're going to come into your training and you're like, I want to be strong so that I can, and I want to have more endurance so I can do more salsa. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And if your body starts to change and in a way that maybe it's a way you like, or maybe it's a way that you don't like, it's like, you just have to know, like, okay, well, what is this really doing to my body? Like, I didn't sign up for salsa, thinking this was going to give me the physique of my dreams, because I saw some salsa dancers that had super skinny waists and, on Dancing with the Stars, like, wow, they look amazing. Like, I want to be that. It's like, okay, well, that's not like the recipe to look like that is to do salsa twice a week. It's do salsa professionally at a high level every day for hours and hours and hours, and, complement that with like a lower calorie diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fitness is so much about doing the things that work to get the results you like and making sure it's fun.
For sure. Yeah. Like, you better be having a blast doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to stick it out long enough to see the epic results that people get.
Yeah.
And that you might want to get, or even just the mediocre results that you want to get, doesn't have to be, you don't have to love it to get the best results. Like, you need to love it to get any results. Like, you need to be into it, to stick it out long enough, like months and months and years. So it's important to add in some spice, but I would love to see that, that there are anchor points for your long-term fitness that that we know are good for your physique, but they're also great for your health. Resistance training will always be great for your health, and it will always be good for your physique. And I loved CrossFit when I found it, primarily for this one reason. As a coach, this is why I loved CrossFit so much, because more people than I had ever seen before in my life, and I had been lifting for a decade before that, in gyms, all kinds of gyms, being the guy that lifted weights, that had muscle, that people knew had muscle, that asked him about what does he do. Been talking about it for a decade or more. But until CrossFit came along, 90% of those people never wanted to try weightlifting.
Mm-hmm.
But when they saw CrossFit, they're like, I want to go and do some weightlifting. Or they were like, oh yeah, I used to do that when I was in college or high school. I want to try it again. It got people to re-engage with something that they once upon a time did, but then lost sight of. So again, credit to CrossFit for getting more people in this world to lift weights and lift heavy weights, and lift with intensity, which is got to be the backbone of any training. And so Strongman has a stronger case for being a part of a fitness program because there's a massive weightlifting component to it.
Yeah.
They're not just practicing the implements. Like, strongman competitors are not just lifting logs all day.
No.
They're doing shoulder presses with barbells and dumbbells. They're doing, they're doing the big lifts to get strong, and then they're taking that strength and seeing how it, translates to picking up a stone and carrying the heavy, farmer's handles across the thing and pushing the big wheel and, lifting the dumpster that has, 10 people standing in it.
Dragging the truck.
Yeah, dragging the airplane or whatever, right? Yeah, you have to practice those disciplines, which could probably be the part of strongman that you might not have access to, and, get a heavy rope to drag things, get a couple sleds and some farmer's handles and a stone or a sandbag, and you can practice some of that stuff, but the underpinnings are also just getting strong. So add in a strength cycle to your fitness routine that's focused on getting your absolute strengths way up. That could be really great. So again, there's a good case for bringing it into a fitness training program, because at the heart of it, it's it's weight training, and we need to have weight training. If there are other fitness things that you see out there that, and go to the steel mace thing. I don't know how heavy people are training in that with that discipline, but it's it's a lot of, it looks like a lot of rotational strength, a lot of coordination. There's body weight elements to it too. There's a limit to how much resistance you can get from those implements versus like a back squat or a leg press, you know? And so I'm just making sure that you're not just seeing like, oh, I see someone doing kettlebell flows all day, therefore like that's the way to build great muscle. It's like, it's a way to build some muscle, but like you can't substitute, heavy deadlifts for, doing some swings with a 40-pound kettlebell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one strongman event to compete in, what would you choose?
That's a good question. I
know mine.
Yeah.
I'll go
yours?
first.
Yeah.
I think I would pick the backwards sandbag height toss.
Okay.
Because I think that Olympic weightlifting would translate fairly well to that. I think there'd be some skill to figure out how to pop it up, but like I do a lot of triple extension right now, so that would be my pick.
Cool. I'm trying to think like, what have I done that I was like, what have I done that I can do actually all right at? So, there's I mean, I was decent at like flipping a tire. Mm-hmm. I was not good at flipping the pig when that thing first got.
No one was good at flipping the pig.
Oh my God. I got the sucky pig. They came out with the pig 2.0 and it was way better. The pig 2.0 was like made out of like soft material. Like it was heavy, but it was like a soft thing to
The first
flip.
one was like full on steel or something.
It was full on just metal on bone.
Gross.
Like just like I'm like looking down at my wrist. I'm like, what the what's happening? So maybe that, or I like the stones, like lifting those things. Mm-hmm. Although I need to like the JV stones. I think like the first stone that they pick up in like it's like a 6-stone ladder.
Yeah,
I think the first one is like more than I can even pick up off the ground. Like let alone
like
up
180 to or something. Like
yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. It's like body weight stone. I'm like, no thanks. No thanks. I need like the, can I get like the 20, 40, 60, 80, and then like maybe the 100 would challenge me.
But yeah, this is inspiring me to go watch some Strongman. It's fun.
Oh my gosh. And Bill Kazmaier, for anybody that hasn't watched those in years or ever, there's a guy named Bill Kazmaier who was like the commentator. He was like the floor commentator who did like the interviews with the athletes afterwards. And I mean, those interviews were just like, they always got me fired up because like Bill Kazmaier was like the American strongman champion, like world champion from America for years before like they televised it a bunch. And then like when they started televising it, they're like, hey, we want you to come in and be like the, announcer or like one of the commentators. And he has this like real awesome voice and he's like ask great questions. And it's always like right when these guys like, it's like, sort of like, how you doing? It's like, it's like these like 400-pound men that have just like put forth like 45 seconds of the most intense effort ever. And they're like breathing like they just, are about to die. Yeah. And they're like answering questions like, it was good. I picked up the stone fast. It was good. And Bill Kazmaier was like, yeah, go get him. I was like, I want to do that.
Nice.
Totally. Cool. Well, great. Another episode and another opportunity for one call to action. Satya, hit it.
Head over to speakpipe.com/look good move well and leave us a voice message and we'll answer your question on the show.
Bada bing. See you next time.